Without feedback from your peers, from your subordinates, from your manager, you're basically operating with your own perceptions, and you're operating on an island.
Tell people that they're doing a great job, wonderful, but also let them know what they can do better at. Don't be afraid of telling people how they can become better people and employees at the same time.
Because after all, I think we're all a work in progress, and feedback is the greatest gift that we can give to one another.
Hey PAC, welcome to this module about requesting feedback. There are a total of 3 modules about feedback. We have requesting, providing, and receiving. Each module is no more than 15 minutes, and we're going to start with requesting feedback. But before we begin, let me introduce you to myself and the team. My name is Neela Kaur, and I'm one of the talent coaches. I have Jen Franco, who's another coach, Raja Mirzog, and Carrie LaRoche.
Hey, everyone. Hey, PAC.
So feedback is really so important to our culture. We realize that all of us, all the way from top leadership to everyone else in the organization, has a huge opportunity to grow leaps and bounds by receiving and providing valuable feedback. We also realize that it's really hard to request and provide feedback, so we want to give you a few tips and tricks, some best practices to make this process a little easier and smoother for you.
Hey, Nilu, before we start, what is feedback?
Feedback is actually specific information that is given to a person about what he or she is doing well or could improve on. And I would like to talk to you about a couple of things to keep in mind when we're requesting feedback. The first is the intention. We want to acknowledge the intention for requesting feedback. So here at Blue Wolf, the Global Talent Management team is committed to providing a culture of continuously learning and improving. And so when we have a positive intention and knowing that everyone has our best interest in mind, it helps us receive and provide feedback. We want to focus on the behavior or the action and not the impression you created. Also, we want to be as specific as possible, so give actual examples versus being general. And most importantly, we want to be thankful and realize that feedback is truly a gift. So you may be wondering when we should request feedback. And it's actually important to request feedback before, during, and after a client engagement, a deliverable, or whatever it is that you're working on. Maybe before a project starts, or during the project, and after the project, so we can learn what we can do better or improve upon the next time around.
That, you know what, that's an excellent point, Nilu, because I'm glad I'm getting this information now. It's very helpful because, I can think back to whenever I've been on site with a client, and it didn't occur to me to, like, if I was going to be conducting an APR, which is an adoption process review, that it didn't occur to me to reach out to my project manager before I led that session to say, hey, while we're in this session, could you do me a favor and just, really pay particular attention to how I'm leading this APR? And, I would love to get your feedback about, my interactions, and did I talk too much, or did I, did I ask a lot of open-ended questions to get them involved? Just things like that. It would have been helpful for me if I had thought to do that before. So this is really good stuff. I mean, certainly it's helpful whenever I, said, hey, here's this deliverable. What do you think? And, getting feedback about a deliverable in the middle of a project is great, too. And after certainly is always great. But that before part is new for me, so that's really cool.
Great. Thanks for sharing, Jen. And, of course, we've heard this a lot at Blue Wolf, but we do have a framework for requesting feedback, wins, learns, and changes. And so when we are thinking about this framework, really thinking about what went well, what did we do well, and what should we continue doing, that would be a win. A learn would be something that didn't go as well, and we can really stop doing it and learn from that experience. And, of course, what can we do differently? What can we have a better outcome next time? What are my changes? What should I start doing? So keeping this framework in mind, we can actually document our feedback in My Wolf. We recently launched My Wolf, and Jen was able to provide some training to managers and employees about My Wolf. And so we want to make sure that you use the wins, learns, changes framework when you're documenting and requesting feedback in My Wolf. So what has been your experience requesting feedback, Jen or Carrie? Or Raj?
So I'll go first. I think for me, it's just that it did not occur to me to ask for feedback. I'm going so fast all the time, and I know we're all busy, and so sometimes it's hard to pause and say, hey, how did I do on that? So for me, it's just remembering to request feedback is probably going to be my do better as as we embark upon this culture of feedback at Blue Wolf.
Yeah, I think Nilu, my biggest challenge probably is going to be around the fact that requesting feedback is really an anxiety-provoking experience. And you brought up this sort of point around intention, and when you said that, when you highlighted that slide, I started to think about what my intentions were whenever I requested feedback. And
I'm going to go back to that slide, Raj, and show everybody that slide you're talking about. There it is.
Oh, great. Yeah, I wanted to talk. So basically, I never really stopped to say, what is my intention for requesting this feedback? Oftentimes, I think that my intentions were mixed. I didn't have that attitude of, this information is going to help me get better. And I think that if I go through that exercise prior to requesting feedback, it would help me sort of alleviate some of that anxiety.
I absolutely agree with you, Raj. And to take it then a step further, once you're aligned with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish, you can be very specific then with the feedback that you're requesting. So it can be very aligned with your goals and what you're trying to accomplish personally and professionally. So you can ask very specific feedback on the part that you're trying to get better at, the part of your goal that you really want to achieve this year. Professionally here at Blue Wolf, you can be very specific so that you're getting feedback all along your project or all throughout the year on that and how you're progressing towards your goal.
That's a really good point too, because in My Wolf, all of that feedback that you request, it's all you can refer back to it, and to the request that you made and to the replies that people gave you about your request. So that's a really good point too. So, Nilu, are there any best practices for us?
Yes, actually we have some tips and best practices on requesting feedback. And so the first one is to be as specific as possible. So be specific about the actual instance, deliverable, or meeting that you're referring to versus general. We want to focus on the behavior or the action and not sort of your opinion. Use the wins, learns, and changes framework to request feedback. And provide it as often as you can and as timely as you can. So don't wait too long to provide the feedback. And also, always remember that feedback is truly a gift.
Yeah, that the focusing on the behaviors and not the person, right? That's a big deal. That speaks to me because I think if you start to direct it toward, if you steer away from that, I think it can maybe sometimes feel a little personal and maybe in a not great way. But I think focusing on the action is really smart, and it makes perfect sense when you're giving feedback.
Yeah, I actually really love number 4, the provide or request feedback often. I think that if you make feedback, requesting feedback, providing feedback a regular part of your workday, it just becomes less scary. I'm really speaking for myself here. I put a note on my calendar to provide or request feedback on a regular basis because it'll help me to, become more used to it, and it will help me to sort of become better at integrating that information as I kind of go about my day, week, month, so on and so forth.
I agree. And I like number 3 because I feel like we're doing feedback the Blue Wolf way. We're incorporating it into the way that we're used to doing feedback with our clients, with our project team. So we're just incorporating it here in terms of feedback to each other to help each other grow. And I like that we're doing that through our own Blue Wolf way.
Can I tell you guys a secret?
Sure.
Sometimes, I'm going to go on it. Sometimes we do wins, learns, changes here in our household.
That's awesome.
having dinner is such a great framework, and I think it just reminds you that nothing is final. You always have an opportunity to learn from something that you've done and take that information and do it better the next time. So
I love that. I'm so going to do that. I'm going to say, so honey, what's the win about the steak and potatoes that we just made? The learn is don't leave the steak on too long. Oh, that's funny.
All right, great. Well, thank you for sharing. That wraps up our module on how to request feedback. Stay tuned for providing and receiving feedback.
thanks, Nilu.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody. Oh, and if you need support and you have questions or whatever, just make sure you watch the end of this video because there's going to be a screen pop up and show you how you can get support and where you can get your resources. Everybody have a great rest of your day.